Today, we're going on a journey. Not to a place you can find on a map, but into the mind itself. We're diving deep into an art movement that decided dreams were more interesting than reality and that raw feeling was way more important than cold, hard facts.
Just look at this for a second. What are we seeing? There's this lone boatman, a figure wrapped in white, and this silent, haunting island. You can't book a trip here. This isn't a real place. It's a mood. It's that feeling of finality, of deep mystery, maybe even a little bit of somber peace. This, right here, is the absolute essence of symbolism.
And that really brings us to the core question of this whole movement. See, in an age that was completely obsessed with science and realism, a bunch of artists stood up and dared to ask a pretty radical question. What if art's purpose is something else entirely? What if its highest calling is to give form to all the invisible stuff? Our ideas, our emotions, our dreams?
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into why this was such a rebellion. Then, we'll meet the artists who were painting myths and dreams. We'll also take a look at the darker side of the psyche, see how these ideas were literally carved in stone, and finally, we'll see how it changed art forever.
So try to picture the late 19th century. The art world was all about realism and impressionism. It was all about capturing the world as you see it, the tangible, observable world. But for a lot of artists, it felt like something really important was getting lost in all that reality, the human soul.
And here's the key thing to get. Symbolism was a very deliberate turn inward. It wasn't about painting what you see with your eyes, not at all. It was about painting what you feel in your heart and what you see in your mind's eye. The subject of the painting wasn't the thing itself, but the idea that thing represented.
Okay, so let's meet some of the actual artists who were leading this charge. They dove into ancient myths, into old stories, and especially into their own imaginations to find the symbols they needed to tell these new kinds of stories.
So this is Gustave Moreau, one of the grandfathers of the movement, really. For him, a painting was so much more than just a pretty picture. He isn't just painting a unicorn here, he's painting this powerful symbol of purity, of wild, untamed nature. And he puts it in this lush, jewel-like fantasy world that has nothing to do with our own. And then for a totally different vibe, you get someone like Pierre Puvis de Chavannes. His work is so much quieter, almost meditative. I mean, these aren't specific women on some beach you could go visit. They're like universal figures set in this simplified, dreamlike landscape that's meant to make you feel a sense of serene, timeless calm.
But let's be real. The inner world isn't all calm dreams and beautiful myths, right? The symbolists knew that, and they were totally unafraid to explore the darker, more unsettling corners of the human mind.
I mean, check this out. This is a seriously bizarre and captivating piece by Fernand Knauf. You have a man staring down this creature that's part woman, part leopard. So what does it mean? Well, Knauf isn't going to give you an easy answer. The painting is the mystery. It's a symbol of the enigmatic, maybe even dangerous, nature of femininity, of the subconscious itself.
Hey, remember Becklin from that Isle of the Dead painting at the beginning? Well, he's back, and this time he's confronting us with pure, absolute terror. I mean, think about it. How do you paint something as abstract as a plague? Well, you give it a body, you personify it, and this is a perfect example of the symbolist method, taking an invisible fear and turning it into a visceral, horrifying reality.
This enormous painting by Ferdinand Hodler isn't just about a bunch of people sleeping. It's about the psychological state of sleep itself. And you have to notice that central figure, right? He's being startled awake by this looming, dark-robed specter. That figure, that's not just a monster. It's the embodiment of our collective anxieties. It's the nightmare that haunts the human condition.
And this obsession with our inner states wasn't just for painters. It literally broke out of the frame. Sculptors also started to reject those perfect, heroic forms, trying instead to carve something much, much deeper into stone and bronze.
And nobody, absolutely nobody, did this better than the master himself, Auguste Rodin. He was way less interested in creating these idealized, perfect bodies. He wanted to make solid bronze and cold stone scream with the raw, messy truth of human emotion.
So this sculpture is based on a real historical event where 6 city leaders offered up their own lives to save their town. Now, a traditional monument would have them standing tall, proud, like heroes. But Rodin, he shows them how they must have actually felt. Terrified, weighed down, full of doubt. He's not sculpting an event, he's sculpting their psychological state.
Just look at the detail here. The tension in those hands,
the utter despair on his face, the way his shoulders just slump with exhaustion, you can feel his inner struggle. Rodin makes us see not just the act of sacrifice, but the terrible, crushing emotional cost of it. This is the soul of symbolism, right here, carved in bronze.
Now, it's really important to get that this wasn't just some little French thing. This need to explore the inner world was a mood, a feeling that swept across all of Europe. Artists everywhere started developing their own unique visual language to talk about it. So in France, you had someone like Maurice Denis who looked at nature and saw this mystical sacred grove. He uses these soft colors and graceful, simple forms to give his landscapes an almost religious quality.
Then you pop over to Switzerland, and Felix Vallotton is taking a seemingly normal scene and just making it feel strange, a little unsettling. The flat shapes, the weird perspective, that unnatural light, it all works together to create this subtle psychological tension.
And then in Belgium, you have James Ensor, who's literally surrounding himself with these grotesque, creepy masks. For him, they were a symbol for the hypocrisy and the absurdity of society. He was exploring that gap between the faces we show the world and our true hidden selves.
So, why does all this matter? What's the big takeaway? It's this. By daring to say that an artist's inner vision was more important than objective reality, the symbolists completely shattered the old rules of art. They basically gave future artists permission to paint their feelings, their anxieties, their wildest dreams. They directly paved the way for huge movements like Expressionism and Surrealism. It was a total game changer.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought. The symbolists showed us that art could be a mirror held up to the soul. So, I'll leave you with this question. If you were going to paint an emotion, or a dream, or just an idea, what would it look like?